Hey there, night shift time travelers. Tonight we're Yuba boating down the Nile's moonlit spine. Yes, the river that's been binge-watching civilization since before your Wi-Fi had a password. The water's so good at keeping secrets, it makes your group chat look like a public billboard. Real talk. You'd last about 45 minutes out here. Modern humans. We're marshmallows with anxiety. Sunrise would find you begging for oat milk lattes and SPF 9000. Survival rating, 1 star, and that star is currently stuck in customs. If you're cozy, smash that like button like it owes you money, and subscribe only if my voice tickles your neurons. No pressure. I'm not your clingy ex. Drop your city and local time in the comments. Let's see who's listening from the future, who's stuck in yesterday, and who's just confused it's already tomorrow. Dim the lights, cue the ceiling fan lullaby, and let's float this gossip-soaked river together. If you hear splashing, don't worry. It's just history trying to photobomb your dreams. The river receives you like a silk scarf slipped around the neck of a cat, gently, but with a hint that resistance is pointless. You recline on a reed boat that feels wider than a queen's apology. Lanterns hang fore and aft, their flames so docile they might be meditating. Beneath you, the Nile is a slow-moving mirror, polishing starlight until it shines like museum gold. Every paddle stroke is a lullaby syllable, SHH loosh, SHH loosh, a wet metronome counting down to some scandal you haven't heard yet. Lotus petals drift past, already gossiping in floral whispers about who kissed whom in the palace garden this afternoon. You pluck one petal, rub it between thumb and forefinger. It releases a scent that reminds you of childhood bubble bath if bubble baths came with dynastic intrigue. Ahead, the temples of Thebes rise like bedtime pop-up books, their columns cut from moonstone. A night heron watches from the prow, acting as feathered security detail. He looks underpaid. Somewhere on the western bank, a jackal laughs at a joke you won't understand for another 3 millennia. The boatman, a wiry man whose eyelids droop like tired curtains, hums a tune older than paper. You ask him what the song means. He shrugs, says it's basically wash your face, love who you must, try not to get embalmed too early. Sage advice. The river widens, and the current decides your itinerary for you. Pharaohs may command armies, but water answers to gravity and gossip alone. You close your eyes just for a blink, and when they open the stars have rearranged themselves into a cartouch spelling trouble. A breeze, warm as fresh flatbread, brushes your cheek and smells of myrrh, which you've heard is the ancient equivalent of wearing cologne labeled mysterious yet approachable. In the distance, a single lamp flickers inside a windowless palace corridor. Somewhere inside, a queen is sharpening her eyeliner and maybe her ambition. You're not scheduled to meet her until tomorrow, but schedules are for mortals, and tonight you feel borderline immortal. The boat sighs against a limestone quay. The heron clocks off with zero farewell etiquette. Your bare feet touch stone still radiating the day's heat like a stored secret. You're tempted to tiptoe, though no one has invented squeaky floors yet. A cat with gold hoop earrings. Yes, earrings, twines around your ankle, purring in hieroglyphics. Somewhere inside the sprawling complex ahead, a scribe sighs over a love letter that begins to whom it may concern, which is never promising. You inhale, exhale, feel the night nod approvingly. It has big plans for your dreams, most involving attractive royals and at least one mistaken identity. For now, you follow the cat, because in Egypt even the pets have better connections than you do. The corridor swallows you whole, and the river behind you murmurs, "I told you so." The corridor receives you like a velvet sleeve pulled over a bruise, soft, dark and faintly medicinal. Frankincense smoke coils above your head, forming question marks that dissolve before you can answer them. Your cat guide pads ahead, earrings glinting like tiny moons. Walls bloom with painted lotuses so lifelike you expect bees. Instead, you get whispered rumors from behind linen curtains. Something about a high priest, a missing wig, and a love bite shaped like an asp. You breathe in. The air is equal parts perfume and politics, a combination that would probably top the charts if bottled. Sandals hush across basalt. Clearly, the palace hired the world's first percussion section dedicated to silence. A servant girl glides past, balancing a tray of pomegranate seeds so red they could file their own taxes. She offers you one. It tastes like sunset mixed with insider trading. Ahead, lamplight pools on a mural of Queen Nefertiti offering a lotus to Aten. Her stone eyes wink, which shouldn't be possible but somehow feels polite. You wink back, because manners are eternal. From a side door, a eunuch emerges wearing eyeliner sharp enough to slice prosciutto. He raises an eyebrow, clearly the ancient equivalent of a TSA scanner, and decides you're harmless, or at least too drowsy to cause an international incident. He gestures toward a curtain made of beaded cowrie shells. They clatter like gossiping teeth as you pass through. Inside, the harem smells of warm henna, powdered cinnamon, and the particular sweetness that lingers when secrets are freshly applied. Low couches slump under the weight of silk pillows embroidered with proverbs you can't read but somehow understand. Love arrives uninvited, brings snacks. A musician plucks a lyre, each note landing like a firefly on your forearm. You find yourself swaying, though no one has issued official dance instructions. Across the room, a noblewoman's board game sits half-finished. The pieces, ivory hippos and ebony lions, look like they're mid-breakup. Someone has scattered rose petals across the floor because nothing says casual like botanical confetti. You tow a petal. It releases a puff of fragrance that makes you momentarily forget Wi-Fi ever existed. The cat leaps onto a cedar table, knocking over a coal pot. The resulting skid mark resembles the Nile Delta, which feels patriotic. A girl, no older than 14, yet already promoted to senior winged eyeliner technician, dabs the spill with linen, then offers to line your eyes for intrigue. You decline. Your intrigue quota is already maxed out for the evening. She shrugs, muttering that foreigners have no commitment to glamour, then sachets off to repaint destiny on someone else's face. From behind a carved screen, you catch two voices trading affectionate insults. "You baboon-shaped perfume bottle," says one. "You lotus-eating date thief," replies the other. Their laughter ricochets through the room like ping-pong balls made of marshmallow. You gather that love here is a contact sport played with compliments sharp enough to shave with. A breeze slips through latticework, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine and something bread-like, possibly the palace's midnight snack brigade. Your stomach volunteers a small timpani roll. Luckily, conversation is louder than digestion. A senior wife appears, her wig towering so high small constellations orbit it. She studies you as if you're a new spice, interesting, potentially useful, possibly overpriced. She finally nods, satisfied that you won't embarrass the linen drapery, and beckons you to follow. Doors open without visible assistance, either polite ghosts or well-oiled hinges, the eternal dilemma. Beyond them, a smaller chamber glows with the intimacy of a candle that's been told it's beautiful. Cushions form a circle like spectators at a kitten wrestling match. You sit. The cat curls on your lap, vibrating with secrets. The wife claps twice, servants materialize bearing tiny cups carved from lapis. The drink inside smells of honey and mild treason. You sip. It tastes like someone distilled twilight and added a splash of never you mind. Your eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, the way curtains behave when the play is mostly over. Somewhere down the hall, a trumpet practices a riff that won't be popular for another 3,000 years. Even time can't resist an exclusive preview. You exhale, feeling the palace settle around you like a quilt stitched by royal gossip. The Queen Pharaoh's dressing chamber greets you with the hush of a library staffed entirely by cats. Cedar panels exhale centuries of polish, mixing with the faint itch of powdered gold suspended in the air like glitter with delusions of grandeur. You stand on a reed mat so finely woven it could double as a cloud's business card. In front of you, on an alabaster pedestal, rests the royal false beard, straight, square-bottomed, and dyed the precise shade of I make decisions. It looks like a small, obedient billy goat attached to a stick, except goats rarely sign treaties. The senior wife nudges you forward. "Try it on," she whispers, as if the beard might overhear and file a grievance. You hesitate. In modern life, you can barely commit to a phone case, let alone facial sovereignty. But the room's candlelight is persuasive, stroking your ego like a practiced courtier. You lift the beard, surprisingly light, like a conspiracy that's all reputation and no paperwork. Its underside is lined with gold mesh and a faint smear of henna, evidence that even pharaohs get itchy chins. You position it against your jaw. The attached straps are silk threads spun so fine they feel like cool water. A polished bronze mirror is tilted toward you. The reflection startles, your face crowned by authority's goatee, eyes widening like a kid who just realized they're driving the family chariot. Somewhere in the metal's tarnished corners, Hatshepsut herself appears, only a shimmer, but unmistakable. She lifts an eyebrow, the universal signal for well. You offer a tentative nod. She answers with the faintest smile, equal parts encouragement and warning that tomorrow's paperwork is considerable. Behind you, two wig stylists debate whether your modern haircut counts as rebellion or avant-garde. They compromise by fluffing your locks until you resemble a dandelion caught in a mild breeze. A cosmetologist approaches wielding a coal wand like a marker of destiny. You close your eyes. The liner glides on colder than a spreadsheet. When you look again, your gaze could issue building permits. The beard chooses that moment to itch, right on the philosophical point of, am I ruling, or is the beard merely letting me co-sign? A steward unrolls a papyrus scroll, Rignal year 21, inventory of swagger. He records the beard's temporary loan to visiting dreamer with adequate posture. You attempt a regal stance. Your knees negotiate terms. The cat from earlier trots in, does a double take, then genuflects, proof that animals have always recognized props before principles. You practice a royal wave. The first attempt looks like you're shooing a fly. The second borrows confidence from the beard's inexplicable center of gravity. A tiny voice in your head, possibly the beard's IT department, suggests lower shoulders, slower wrist, hint of mystery. You obey, the mirror approves. Somewhere down the corridor, officials preparing tomorrow's temple ceremony sense a disturbance in authority and reflexively straighten their sashes. A court musician strikes a chord that translates loosely to all hail the temporary monarch of nap time. You almost laugh, but the beard tightens subtly, reminding you that levity is taxable. Instead, you inhale, drawing in cedar, lamp oil, and the metallic taste of power that's been kept on a low simmer since 1479 BCE. Your exhale emerges slower, weighted by centuries of ledger entries and diplomatic smiles. For a heartbeat, you understand why Hatshepsut kept the thing, even when her counselors begged her to maybe try earrings instead. Authority, you realize, is half posture, 1/4 paperwork, and the remaining quarter is simply refusing to scratch in public. The Queen's shimmer nods once more, then fades, leaving only your reflection and a faint scent of myrrh that feels like a receipt. You carefully unhook the beard, half expecting it to protest with a tiny bleat. It doesn't. It merely hangs there, placid and already forgetting your name. The steward adds a closing line, returned intact, slight dream residue. You step back, cheeks cool where the straps had been, and notice the mat now bears the imprint of feet that have stood at the crossroads of history and hairspray. As you exit, the cat follows, tail high, as though escorting deposed royalty into early retirement. Behind you, candles gutter, mirrors tilt back to their default flattery, and the scent of power settles like dust that's learned to curtsy. You flex your unbearded jaw, lighter but also vaguely nostalgic for the moment you borrowed the outline of sovereignty. Ahead, a staircase spirals toward a rooftop where stars wait to debrief you. Each step feels like shedding a role you were only understudying, yet the script, you sense, still has your name penciled in for future scenes. The spiral stair exhausts cool limestone as you climb, sandals soft, whispering like library gossip. Each step is narrower than the last, as though the architecture itself is trying to slim down for a reunion. You emerge onto the palace rooftop, a slate of ink-blue sky stretching so wide it could swallow every rumor you've heard tonight and still have room for tomorrow's headlines. The city below is a scatter of votive lamps, each flame practicing its own tiny coup. Behind you, the cat flops down, bored by astronomy that refuses to pet her. A man waits beside a waist-high sextant carved of ebony and brass. Senenmut, royal architect, part-time sky whisperer, full-time keeper of the Queen's secrets, offers a nod that feels like a password. His linen skullcap is starched to mathematical perfection. You suspect he uses geometry as hair gel. The sky keeps better ledgers than papyrus, he says, voice the texture of well-aged parchment. He hands you a polished cedar tube, part telescope, part flute, part excuse to stand closer to infinity. You peer through it. Constellations leap forward, suddenly shy at being noticed. Orion flexes like a palace guard who knows he's overdressed. The Big Dipper sloshes imaginary beer toward Cassiopeia, who pretends not to notice. Senenmut traces an invisible line between two bright sparks. That gap, he murmurs, is where the Queen hides her boldest decisions. You imagine policy papers floating in zero gravity, unsigned but already enforceable. A breeze carries the scent of desert coolness and far-off bakeries operating on overtime for some festival you haven't been invited to. It riffles the architect's paperwork. Star charts, inked so finely they look like spider sonnets. He clips one to a board, then offers you a stylus. Mark where you think the next full moon will rise. You hesitate. Your last act of astronomy was doodling Saturn's rings on a coffee sleeve. Still, the night is generous with second chances. You make a dart. He tilts his head, amused. Bold, you've placed it inside Leo, ambitious, slightly catty, very on brand. From the east, a discreet meteor zips across the dark like a courier with state secrets. Senenmut makes a note. That one predicts a new staircase, possibly scandal-shaped. You wait for the punchline. It never lands because he's already serious. In this era, Omens punch first. He gestures toward a stone bench cushioned by a single leopard pelt that still radiates feline entitlement. You sit. The fur is warm, as though the leopard stepped out for a smoke and plans to reclaim its spot. Above, the Milky Way spills like sugar across black marble. Some priests say stars are ancestral spirits, he says. I say they're unfinished constellations waiting for us to earn them. You mull that, unsure whether you're closer to earning a star or a participation ribbon. Minutes stretch, elastic and forgiving. You become aware of palace sounds drifting upward, lyre plucks, distant laughter, a guard's cough that could mean all clear, or I need a lozenge. None of it reaches the rooftop with urgency. Altitude is an excellent bouncer. Senenmut offers you a sip from a small alabaster flask. The liquid is sweet, resinous, and carries a note of cedar attic. Observatory wine, he explains. Aged while we wait for light to cross the sky. You swallow. It tastes like patience carbonated. He taps the sextant, aligning mirrors until a single star bounces into your eye like a laser pointer designed by destiny. That sopped it, he says. She announces the flood. When she rises, hearts and property values lift. You picture rivers swelling, fields drinking, accountants smiling for the first time all year. For a moment the cosmos feels less like void and more like a utility bill that actually pays you back. The cat yawns, unimpressed by stellar utility. She curls into the leopard pelt's former territory, establishing a bipartisan fluff coalition. Senenmut watches, half smile flickering. Even sky watchers need earth anchors, he admits. You suspect he's talking about the cat, maybe about you, maybe about the way Hatshepsut's name hovers unspoken between every star. A bell tolls somewhere deep in the palace, one clang, then nothing. The architect closes his ledger. Time to dim the lights before the guards start photobombing. He lowers the lamps to ember level. Shadows stretch, linking constellations into new, unauthorized shapes, a beard drifting away from a chin, a lotus kissing an asp, a scribe waltzing with a meteor. You lie back, leopard pelt plus, cat now serving as an improvised pillow. The sky lowers itself until you can almost hear it breathing, a slow inhale of centuries and exhale of maybe. You trace your own faint dart, the premature moon, now swallowed by Leo's mane. Somewhere inside that cat-shaped corner of sky, history is already rewriting itself in invisible ink. Senenmut's soft calculations continue, numbers murmured like lullabies for planets. Each syllable lands on your eyelids, gentle as dust that's learned mindfulness. Above, the stars keep their own score. Below, the palace dreams of tomorrow's scandals. And here on the roof, you float between them, an extra comma in a sentence that's still being composed, somewhere in the margin of night. A servant shakes you awake, not with urgency, but the polite tremor of someone who's borrowed time and needs it back before dawn notices. Stars have clocked out. The sky is that bruised lavender that feels like a secret handshake between night and morning. You sit up on the leopard pelt, now impersonating a slightly rumpled continent. The cat is gone, replaced by a single cowrie shell, her version of a receipt. Senenmut is nowhere, yet his star charts linger in your pocket, folded so precisely they might hatch into constellations if kept warm. The servant, a boy with cheekbones sharp enough to open envelopes, press a clay tablet into your hands. Still soft, it bears the thumbprints of hurried fingers. "For the Queen," he whispers, though his eyes say, "For anyone brave enough to carry fire without getting burned." You sniff the tablet, smoke, iron, and something floral that could either be rose water or an alibi. He gestures toward a side stair that corkscrews down into perfumed darkness. Somewhere at the bottom, a kiln breathes. Its glow climbs the stairs like a shy orange ghost. You descend. Each step releases a puff of warm air that smells of baking bread and international espionage. At the kiln's mouth, a scribe fans the flames with a papyrus sheet. Apparently, paperwork becomes more honest when threatened with incineration. He sees you, offers a nod that doubles as a non-disclosure agreement, then hands you a reed stylus. "We're drafting a letter to the king of Napata," he says, voice low enough to limbo under palace doors. "Your outsider handwriting might confuse enemy interceptors." You're unsure whether that's a compliment or collateral damage. The letter, already outlined, is carved in hurried cursive, Queen Akhenaten. Yes, that teenager with the coal-heavy eyes begs the Nubian king for a prince, any prince, preferably breathing and not already married to his sword. Apparently Egypt's throne is one spouse short and decades long on chaos. You are to copy the text onto obsidian black ostraka, because nothing says urgent like flirting in triplicate. You bend over the warm clay. The stylus scratches, a noise halfway between mouse squeak and secret. The kiln pops, throwing sparks that spell fleeting words. Help, hurry, maybe forget the whole thing, before vanishing into chimney anonymity. Your shoulders tense. Love letters are stressful enough without dynastic stakes. Still, the heat is oddly soothing, like a weighted blanket woven from geopolitics. Halfway through, the scribe drips wax across the tablet's edge, sealing in sincerity and smoke. He sprinkles powdered lapis, because even panic deserves accessories, then presses the queen's scarab seal into the molten puddle. The beetle impression stares up at you, looking equally desperate and regal, the emoji equivalent of "crown please, crocodiles close." A side door creaks, a figure slips in, face wrapped in indigo linen until only eyes show, eyes that have clearly read every room they've ever entered. She produces a second letter, this one on thin gold foil, and slides it atop your still warm tablet. "Insurance," she purrs, in case the king prefers shiny bribes to desperate pleas. Her voice is midnight wrapped in honey. You nod, trying not to look like someone who's just become a diplomatic envelope. The scribe lifts both items with tongs, sets them inside a hollow reed tube, then caps the tube with bitumen that smells like tar's moody cousin. He ties the bundle with red cord. 7 knots, each muttered over like a tiny marital vow between secrecy and survival. You're handed the tube. It's heavier than expected, as if emotions have mass after all. Footsteps echo above, guards beginning their pre-dawn sweep. The kiln is doused with a hiss that sounds like gossip being strangled. You're pointed toward a narrow passage barely wider than regret. It slopes uphill, cool air sliding down like an usher with a flashlight. You climb, tube clutched against your chest, heart tapping Morse code for what now? At the passage's end, a wooden hatch opens onto the palace's delivery courtyard. The sky has upgraded from lavender to pale rose, the color of cheeks after a first kiss. A Nubian courier waits beside a dromedary whose eyelashes are longer than most policy documents. He takes the tube, bows, and slips it into a leather satchel already bulging with other people's fates. No words exchanged, just the soft jingle of amulets as he swings onto the saddle and vanishes through a postern gate. You exhale, watching your breath curl upward, a ghost applying for daytime employment. Somewhere south, beyond the cataracts, a king will soon unroll Egypt's plea beneath the shade of a Kushite palm. Whether he answers with soldiers, sons, or silence is a mystery folding itself into the horizon. Behind you, the palace begins to stir, doors yawning, kettles clearing their throats. You still smell of kiln smoke and borrowed urgency. A breeze lifts, carrying the distant scent of bread and the fainter promise that history, like a shy date, might still text back. The courtyard bricks soak up dawn like shy sponges, each one warming until it exhales resin and yesterday's incense. You wander toward a colonnade open to the east, chasing the last whiff of bread and intrigue. The air feels suddenly wider, as if someone loosened a corset city-wide. Ahead, a street slopes down to a brand new city, Amarna, still half scaffolding, half miracle. Limestone dust hangs in slow motion, turning sunrise into a lazy gold filter historians will later call iconic, if anatomically awkward. A single sunbeam, noticeably pushier than its colleagues, finds your face and decides to move in. It is less a ray and more a polite interrogation. Where have you been? Who did you cuddle? And do you pay taxes to any god older than me? You squint. The light smells of hot alabaster and fresh theology. Somewhere between blink and squint, you realize the beam has a voice, silky and absolute, like a podcast host who already knows the ending. "Call me Aten," it says, though the pronunciation leaves a sunspot on your tongue. You try to sidestep. The beam follows with GPS accuracy. Around you, workmen freeze mid-chisel, their hammers hovering like gossip, unsure whether to land. They've seen this before. Everyone in Amarna gets personally sun-kissed sooner or later. One mason whispers, "Just nod and let it monologue," then returns to carving a lintel that looks suspiciously like yesterday's royal family, but with longer necks and smaller laundry list of guards. The beam warms your chest until your heart feels laminated. "Feel that," Aten murmurs. "One guard, one heat source, 0 hidden fees." You consider pointing out that solar monotheism plays havoc with night shift workers' benefits, but diplomacy suggests silence. Instead, you inhale. The air tastes of cut stone and freshly minted dogma. Somewhere behind you, a priest of Ammon drops a scroll and sighs loud enough to register as an official protest. A court poet skitters over, tablet in hand, eyes shining with commission-based reverence. "Quick," he hisses. "Give me a metaphor the sun is." You shrug. "A celestial desk lamp," he scribbles furiously, already rhyming lamp with camp, stamp, and revolutionary revamp. Aten approves, brightening until your shadow retreats beneath your sandals, embarrassed. You have, in effect, become your own sundial, and it's barely breakfast. The beam nudges you toward a balcony overlooking the central road. Below, families arrange offering tables with bread, figs, and tiny sun-shaped cookies that look like emojis ahead of schedule. Children chase each other, squealing hymns that are basically, "You are my sunshine," in hieroglyphic remix. You feel the city inhaling belief, exhaling novelty. A startup civilization still in beta, but with excellent PR. Aten whispers homework. "Tell them I need no statue, only horizon." Carve that. You picture tourists 3 millennia, hence wandering museum halls asking, "Where's the big guy?" And guides replying, "He's in the gift shop on keychains." The notion makes you grin. The sunbeam takes credit for dental brightness. Gradually, the ray loosens its grip, sliding off your shoulders like a stole that's late for another appointment. Temperature drops a degree. Your shadow reappears, stretching as if after a long team-building seminar. Workmen resume hammering, poets return to their couplets, and the priest of Ammon retrieves his scroll, already rehearsing counter-theological subtweets. You step down from the balcony, knees vaguely sun-drunk. A vendor offers you a lotus-shaped honey cake, blessed by the disk himself. You buy two, because polytheism may be out of fashion but dessert is eternal. The cake melts on your tongue like sugary photons. Somewhere inside the new temple, artisans are plastering frescoes where the royal family rides chariots made of sun rays. Family outing, no guards required. As you wander back toward the palace gate, you catch your reflection in a polished obelisk, hair slightly singed, eyes reflecting a gold disc that isn't there. For a moment, you look like someone who's vacationed inside a theology textbook and brought back souvenirs of light. The city continues assembling itself, every brick a syllable in a hymn that has only one refrain. You exhale, expecting steam. Instead, ordinary breath. Proof that even absolute deities eventually clock out. Behind you, Aten climbs higher, already auditioning new shoulders to warm, new ears to fill with singular devotion. Ahead, the corridor smells of fresh paint and existential redecorating. You walk toward it, carrying a mild sunburn and the certainty that tomorrow's breakfast will be served with a side of revolution, lightly toasted. The corridor spits you out into a chamber that forgot to install corners. Walls curve like a hug from someone who studied architecture but skipped anatomy. In the center stands a bronze mirror taller than your future, its surface hammered so thin it quivers when you blink. A servant angles it toward a slit window, feeding its son disk leftovers until the metal gleams like butter that's achieved enlightenment. Around the frame, lotus petals are inlaid with lapis so blue you suspect someone squeezed night itself through a juicer. You approach. The mirror watches first. Your reflection arrives piecemeal. Eyes, shoulders, a beard shadow that wasn't there yesterday. You blame Akhenaten's overzealous lighting. Then the glass ripples, polite as a pond, and Nefertiti steps beside you. Only she's not in the room, merely in the reflection, as if the mirror subcontracted another dimension for cameos. She tilts her head. Her iconic cap crowns gravity-defying symmetry. Finally, her image says, voice arriving through the bronze like a phone call from 1335 BCE. Someone who doesn't ask if the neck is photoshopped. You manage a bow. Etiquette handbooks rarely cover dimensional courtesy. She studies your face with the efficiency of a customs officer who's seen every excuse. You've carried letters, beards, sunbeams. How's the spine? You straighten. Something clicks that's either vertebrae or ancient approval. Satisfied, she lifts a coal part identical to the one the cat knocked over earlier. Product placement transcends centuries. Watch, she orders, dabbing a finger and drawing a line midair. The line stays floating. A smudge of black calligraphy that drifts toward your right eye and settles perfectly, cool as a librarian's whisper. Behind her reflected shoulder, you glimpse Amarna's skyline. Sun temples, half-finished statues, a city still buffering. She notices your gaze. Beautiful, isn't it? Like a poem that hasn't realized it rhymes yet. You nod. Urban planning via verse sounds risky but photogenic. She turns back to the mirror, palms resting on either side of the frame. This glass keeps my options open, she says. One wink left. Empire leans north. Right, it leans south. She demonstrates. Empires fail to budge, but the reflection shivers, suggesting possibilities are at least considering exercise. A stylist enters the real room, carrying a tray of earrings shaped like tiny suns. Clearly the palace merchandising department works overtime. Nefertiti's reflection waves the woman off. Actual Nefertiti is presumably somewhere being iconic on schedule. The mirror version plucks one sun earring anyway, holds it toward you. Trade, she offers. Your coal for my celestial accessory. You hesitate, Swapping cosmetics with royalty feels like a tax audit waiting to happen. But the earring is warm, as if recently removed from a star's lobe. You accept. The coal line floats out of your eye, reconfigures into a miniature comet, and dives into her palm. Fair trade, apparently. She clips the sun onto your ear. It weighs less than a secret, but hums faintly, solar tinnitus. Wear it when clarity dims, she advises, then adds. Also pairs nicely with desperation. You attempt to thank you. Words come out echoey, processed through bronze reverb. She smiles, the same serene curve that launched 1,000 museum postcards, but up close you notice the left corner twitch. Tiny seismic activity registering every burden she's not allowed to show in public. Footsteps approach, real ones, heavy with official sandal. Nefertiti's reflection glances sideways. Gotta go. Mirrors have curfews. She steps backward. The glass swallows her like a polite lake. Your own image returns, now accessorized by a celestial stud that glows like a night light with delusions of grandeur. You touch it. Warmth pulses, syncing with heartbeat or possibly interest rates. The stylist bows, retrieves a linen cloth, and polishes the mirror until it forgets the entire conversation. She exits. The room dims, sun disk having moved on to its next promotional appearance. You stand alone, ear humming, coal now cosmic property. Somewhere in the bronze depths, lotus petals shift, rearranging themselves into a faint map, darts connected by invisible ink, pointing southward. You memorize the shape. In this palace, even Dacre moonlights as GPS. As you leave, the mirror flashes once, like a camera or a wink or a lighthouse reminding ships that politics also has shallow rocks. You step into the corridor lighter by one cosmetic, heavier by a solar earring, and newly aware that every reflection from here on out might be negotiating terms. Back in the hallway, the air feels suddenly crowded even though you're technically alone, like someone left an extra personality idling. Footsteps echo ahead, light, quick, the acoustic signature of a person used to entering rooms before doors finish opening. You follow, drawn less by curiosity than by the earring's soft pulse. Apparently solar jewelry doubles as royal radar. At a corner lit by a single clay lamp, the corridor widens into an alcove draped with indigo hangings. A figure stands half behind a column, face obscured by lotus petals that have been stitched onto a linen cowl, camouflage by florist. Only the eyes show, young, glossy, carrying the weary sparkle of someone who's read the last page of their own biography and found it blank. The stranger raises one finger to masked lips, universal symbol for pretend I'm wallpaper. You nod, because overnight you've become multilingual in ambiguity. From the opposite direction clatters a squad of guards, bronze spears chiming like aggressive wind chimes. They march past, arguing whether the king's breakfast should include figs or fear. The moment they vanish, the lotus figure steps fully into view. He lowers the cowl, revealing a face smooth as uninscribed stone, crowned with a side lock of youth so perfectly braided it could secure treaties. I'm Smenkhkare, he whispers, as though the name itself is contraband. You've heard rumors, co-king, prince, palace ghost depending on who's gossiping and how much wine survived dinner. He glances at your glowing earring, winces. Solar accessory. Nice, but it pings on Aiton's Wi-Fi. Mind dimming. You cover it with your palm. The hum drops to a purr. Smenkhkare exhales relief that rattles slightly, breath of someone whose calendar is mostly evacuation routes. I need a walking shadow, he says. Officially, I'm everywhere. Unofficially, I'm here. You game. Before you can answer, he slips a second cowl, this one plain over your head. Linen smells of starch and mild panic. Together you move, blending into corridor traffic, servants balancing trays, dancers rehearsing steps, a priest arguing with a baboon over tithe percentages. Smenkhkare keeps to your right, letting your shadow cloak his shorter one, an eclipse in slow motion. Every few steps he swaps sides, a choreography designed to confuse any scribe attempting a head count. You pass a mural of the royal family. His face in the painting looks older than the one beside you, suggesting artists either flattered futures or he's updated at a slower firmware. He notices your stare. Portraits age, I don't, he jokes, voice brittle. Perks of co-kingship, shared throne, shared statues, shared oblivion. The last word lands heavy, like a stone slab closing a tomb that hasn't decided on an occupant. We reach a side door leading to a garden where lettuce grows in neat rows, aphrodisiac greens, because even salads have agendas. Beneath a sycamore, 2 chairs wait, one ornate, one plain. He gestures you to the fancy seat. Sit like me. In 20 minutes a herald will arrive to practice tomorrow's proclamation. I need to be in 2 places, your place number 2. He hands you a reed stamped with the royal cartouche, temporary license to impersonate uncertainty. Uncertainty, you realize, tastes like lettuce sap and nerves. You sit. The throne is warm, presumably from previous anxieties. Smenkhkare retreats behind the tree, becoming shadow squared. Moments later the herald appears, scroll unfurling like a red carpet for words. He recites, "Long live Smenkhkare, beloved of Aten, half of harmony, may he endure like the sun." You nod, trying to look kingly, which mostly involves not scratching the earring. The herald doesn't glance up, proof that protocol can be blinder than blindfolds. Scroll completed, he bows and backs away. Smenkhkare re-emerges, expression halfway between gratitude and grief. See, history swallowed that without chewing. He plucks a lettuce leaf, bites, winces at its bitter flirtation. Co-rule is a dance where both partners claim the same footprint. Eventually, the floor remembers only one. He pockets a second leaf, probably lunch, possibly metaphor. He removes your plain cowl, folds it, slips it into a satchel already bulging with half-finished poems and unsigned decrees. "Thanks for the shadow loan," he says. "If asked, you never saw me. If unseen, maybe I saw you." He smiles, a quick, sad crescent, then slips through a gap in the hedge shaped suspiciously like an unanswered question. You sit alone beneath sycamore shade, royal reed still in hand, listening to lettuce grow. Somewhere overhead, a leaf uncurls, casting a shadow that could belong to any king, half-king, or visitor who briefly wore monarchy like an ill-fitting hat. You wait until the sun relocates, then stand, pocket the reed, and let the garden decide which footprints are worth keeping. The garden path spills you into a courtyard where teenage laughter ricochets off freshly painted columns, voices still cracking like new pottery. A cluster of boys in pleated kilts circles a low table littered with gaming sticks and date-sweetened soda that hasn't been invented yet. But royal kitchens operate on a flexible timeline. At their center sits a slight figure wearing the double crown, though it keeps sliding down his forehead like a beanie bought one size too large. This must be Tutankhamun, king, adolescent, human referendum on backpedaled religion. He looks up, the famous half-smile activates, left corner lifts, right side declines, creating a facial shrug that says, "I'm here, but so is homework." He waves you over with a reed that's chewed flat, evidence of either nerves or aggressive note-taking. "You try," he says, pointing to the game board, a grid of squares carved into cedar, pieces shaped like lions and dogs mid-identity crisis. The objective, apparently, is to race your animals toward a sunset square while avoiding holes labeled regional instability. You sit, crown boy's part, respectful but curious how badly an adult will lose to a 14-year-old strategist. Tut flicks a hyena piece. It lands on a space that grants extra grain, victory in teenage metrics. My grandpa used to play, he mentions, voice toggling between treble and the occasional bass surprise. Of course, he also used to rule. The table laughs, court etiquette diluted by shared puberty. You roll knucklebone dice, they clatter like unpaid bills. Your lion advances 2 squares, immediately falling into a plague pit. Tut winces theatrically. Tough break, want a priest? We've got spares. Around you, boys snort grape juice through their noses, a fresco of elite hydration. A servant arrives balancing lotus-shaped cups filled with something fizzy and gold. Tut lifts his in a toast that's half royal decree, half cafeteria banter, to lasting forever, at least till graduation. You clink. The drink tastes of honey, fermented dates, and the faintest note of adult onset responsibility. Sunlight ricochets off your solar earring, spraying tiny spotlights across the board. Tut notices, leans closer. Nice bling. Aitons or Ankhissenamuns? You mumble solar hand-me-down, which satisfies him. He's used to inheriting celestial leftovers. Mid-game, an older advisor hurries in, scroll tucked under his arm like an intrusive parent. Majesty, about tomorrow's ceremony. Tut lifts a hand, still baby-soft yet already capable of stopping bureaucratic momentum. After match point, he decrees. The advisor retreats, defeated by adolescence. Tut winks at you, one future pharaoh to one temporary tourist, acknowledging shared allergy to homework, be it algebra or afterlife logistics. You manage a comeback. Your dog piece vaults a trap and lands on divine favor. The boys cheer. Someone starts a drumbeat on the table's edge. Tut laughs, crown finally sliding off entirely. He doesn't retrieve it, lets it roll to the floor like yesterday's fad. See, he says to no one and everyone. Crowns move, players keep playing. The sentence lands heavier than intended. A momentary hush ripples, then dissolves into bravado. Game ends in a tie, probably diplomacy disguised as probability. Tut leans back, satisfied. Draw means we both survive, he declares, half joke, half prophecy. He signals for refills. Servants comply with the speed of people who understand compound interest in career longevity. You sip slower now, aware that every swallow could be archived. Somewhere in the palace, scribes update ledgers. Visitor tied with king, status undetermined. A bell tolls. Deep, adult, immune to jokes. Tut sighs the sigh of youth everywhere, recess is over. He stands, immediately attendants swarm, straightening kilts, repositioning the escaped crown, wiping grape must from royal chin. For a second he looks at you, eyes equal parts mischief and melancholy. If you ever learn how to finish the game, he says, save me a square. Then the half-smile flicks on once more, left side loyalty, right side resignation, before he's escorted toward corridors where murals outlive players. You remain at the table, surrounded by abandoned pieces mid-gallop, cups breathing faint sweetness into morning air. A servant offers you a souvenir, a tiny wooden lion with one ear chipped, faulty merchandise or poignant metaphor. Take your pick. You pocket it, feeling the rough carve of mane against fingers that suddenly understand how briefly even kings get to be children. The gaming table's chatter fades behind you as a hand, light, determined, unmistakably adult, settles on your sleeve. You turn to find a young woman draped in linen the color of freshly poured cream, her eyes lined so expertly they could negotiate treaties on their own. This is Akhenaten, queen, sister wife, walking ultimatum. She dismisses the boys with a tilt of her chin. They scatter like pigeons before a chariot. "I heard you deliver messages," she says, voice pitched low enough to limbo under palace walls. Her fingers tremble against your arm, not from fear, but the aftershock of holding a dynasty together with jewelry wire. She glances around, then steers you toward a side portico overlooking a pond busy with artificial lilies and real tension. A scribe shadowing her at a respectful 3-pace distance pretends to study ducks while angling his tablet for acoustic optimization. At the pond's edge she stops, pulls a rolled gold foil from her sash. The insurance letter you saw earlier, now warmed by body heat and anxiety. "My husband needs an heir," she whispers, "but the gods gave us daughters and heartbreak in duplicate." She nods toward the foil. "This asks the Hittite king for a prince, a real one, not a cousin with good teeth and vague promises." Her eyes flick to the horizon, as if measuring the miles between here and Anatolia in units of desperation. She presses the foil into your palm. It feels heavier than metal, as if impatience has mass. You'll ride south with the Nubian courier at dusk. If Egypt's army intercepts you, you're carrying routine greetings. If priests ask, you're off to donate to temple cats. Lie like you're negotiating rent. She attempts a smile. It stalls halfway, overheated. From her sleeve, she produces a second item, a tiny lapis scarab, wings etched open. "Seal it with this. When the Hittite sees blue, he'll know I sent truth disguised as jewelry." She closes your fingers over both objects, her grip momentarily that of a girl clutching the last ticket out of a burning city. Then the queen mask redescends. Spine straight, chin lifted, eyes calculating wind speed and patriarchal pushback. Behind you, the pond's surface dimples. A servant has dropped a stone to signal approaching guards. Akhenaten leans closer, breath warm with cinnamon and barely banked panic. "If they catch you, swallow the scarab. Better a stone in the stomach than a confession on a scroll." Advice no career counselor ever covers. She steps back, nodding for you to leave first. Protocol demands the queen never turn away from potential witnesses. You pocket foil and beetle, trying to look like someone merely out for evening stroll and sudden foreign policy. As you pass the scribe, he tears off a corner of his tablet, stuffs it into your sandal strap. Insurance, breadcrumb, or maybe grocery list for revolution. You keep walking, heartbeat loud enough to alert migrating birds. At the stable courtyard, the Nubian courier waits, dromedary loaded with leather satchels that smell of myrrh and plausible deniability. He offers a hand up. You swing into the saddle, feeling the foil crinkle against your hip like a promise trying to fold itself smaller. Gates creak open, torches gutter. Beyond the walls, desert exhales cool night air, vast enough to swallow conspiracies whole and still look hungry. As the caravan lurches onto moonlit sand, you glance back. On the highest balcony, a figure in cream linen watches, silhouette trimmed by lamplight. She raises a hand, not wave, not blessing, more like someone holding an invisible thread, hoping distance doesn't fray it beyond repair. You tap the camel's reins. The thread stretches, hums, and keeps you moving southward toward a king who may loan a son, or send armies, or ignore the plea entirely. Beneath your ribs, the scarab clicks softly against the foil, sounding like a clock that's forgotten whether it's counting up or down. The desert night folds around your caravan like a velvet burrito, equal parts comfort and mild suffocation. Stars hang low enough to bump your helmet, each one a lantern left on by someone who's forgotten to sleep. Beside you, the Nubian courier hums an old Kushite lullaby that sounds suspiciously like a map. Every note a landmark, every rest a warning. You shift in the saddle. The golden foil letter crinkles against your ribs, whispering Egyptian state secrets to your liver. Ahead, a sandstone outcrop looms, carved into a way station by traders who believed in hydration and gossip in equal measure. Torchlight flickers inside. Shadows trade rumors on the walls. Your camel kneels without being asked. Diplomatic animal knows when history needs a pause. As you dismount, knees auditioning for percussion, voices leak from the station, male, urgent, spiced with the vinegar of conspiracy. The courier raises a palm, stay. He slips inside, sandals silent as amortized debt. You wait, ear pressed to cool stone. Words sharpen, poison, nightly cup, queen's own hand. A second voice, higher, nervous, hisses, if the king dies before sunrise, the Hittite boy becomes a footnote. Your stomach drops into your sandals. They're discussing Tut, the gaming kid with the half-smile, and Akhenaten's imported prince plan. Apparently not everyone bought tickets to the foreign policy matinee. You peek through a crack. Inside, 4 men crouch around a low table. One wears the side lock of a scribe's apprentice. Barely old enough to shave, already old enough to consider regicide. Another sports the leopard sash of a harem guard, the kind of job that sounds fun until you read the non-compete clause. On the table, a tiny alabaster vial, stopper sealed with black wax shaped like an asp mid-laugh. The plan seems simple. Swap the king's nightly grape juice with this vintage, blame unfortunate fermentation. Accelerate succession crisis. Your hand finds the lapis scarab in your pocket. Evidence. Talisman. Paperweight. All of the above. You debate barging in, diplomatic immunity courtesy of solar earring, then remember you left immunity in your other kilt. Instead you breathe, counting heartbeats until the courier reappears, eyes reflecting torchlight like polished onyx. He gestures, circle around, cut the exit. You nod, though around involves desert, darkness, and a camel who's already emotionally checked out. You slip away, sand swallowing footfalls. The station's rear window is knee-high, designed for ventilation and eavesdropping. Inside, the guard uncorks the vial. A sour odor drifts. Bitter almonds announcing murder like a pretentious sommelier. Apprentice scribe produces a second cup, identical to Tut's favorite gaming chalice, apparently regicide ships with matching dishware. They pour a test drop. Liquid hisses against copper, etching a tiny crater. Effective, dramatic, overkill in the most literal sense. You need a distraction loud enough to travel but quiet enough not to summon their accomplices. Your fingers brush the solar earring. It hums, remembering Aiton's love of spectacle. You angle the polished disc toward torchlight, bounce a beam straight onto the vial. Glass magnifies light. Wax softens. Asp-shaped stopper droops like Salvador Dali's clock. One conspirator yelps, drops the vial. Poison kisses tabletop, eats a hole clean through. Panic erupts. Accusations of faulty craftsmanship. Hurried mopping with a sleeve that promptly begins dissolving. In the chaos, the courier steps inside, voice calm as bookkeeping. Evening, gentlemen. Lovely night for treason. Blades half draw, then freeze when they notice his royal seal satchel. Official parchment beats amateur poison every time. He offers a choice. Surrender now and face palace inquiry, or run and trust the desert to finish what chemistry started. They run, sandals flapping like startled geese, disappearing into night that's suddenly hungry. The courier lifts the damaged cup with a cloth, studies the acid bloom, shakes his head. Some vintages don't travel well. He pockets the remains, evidence, souvenir, cautionary prop for tomorrow's PowerPoint. You exhale, realizing you've been clenching every muscle, including some you named yourself. The scarab in your pocket clicks once, as if closing a tiny file labeled Attempted. Outside, dawn's first bruise colors the horizon. Your camel grumbles to its feet, ready to carry scandal and savior alike across the next dune. You swing into the saddle, earring dimming to a night light setting. Behind you, the outcrop recedes, its cracks now holding a secret rewritten by sunlight and dumb luck. Ahead, the road to Napata unfurls, still long, still dangerous, but one king safer than it was an hour ago. You pat the foil letter, feeling it breathe again, anxious, hopeful, and blissfully unaware that its author almost became a widow before finishing paragraph 2. Dawn finishes its color grading over the desert, and your caravan finally reaches the Nile's next bend, a place where the river poses for postcards it won't see for 3 millennia. The courier points toward a riverside villa flying red silk pennants, royal rest stop, Wi-Fi courtesy of pigeons. As you dismount, knees auditioning for a percussion ensemble, a scribe trots out, tablet balanced like a pizza tray. His Majesty Ramses Roman II commands your presence. Poetry emergency, he announces, as though hearts are literally stopping for lack of couplets. Inside the garden courtyard, roses the size of bread loaves exhale perfume so thick you could butter it. Beneath a grape arbor, Ramses, yes, the great, the builder, the brand, paces in linen so white it hurts your moral sense. He's maybe 25 today, still pre-great, already preening. Scrolls carpet the ground like rejected Tinder bios. He spots you, relief flooding a face carved for victory parades. You, for an earring, help me finish this poem before sunset, or my wife will finish me. He thrusts a papyrus into your hands. The opening lines read, "My beloved is lettuce, strong of leaf, delicate of root." You blink. Vegetable romance is apparently trending. He explains Queen Nefertiti loves salad, ergo salad equals love. You suggest maybe elevating the metaphor beyond produce. He frowns, ego creaking, then nods, because even egos need oil. You offer, "My beloved is the Nile at flood, banks trembling yet eager." Rames's eyes widen, pupils shaped like exclamation marks. He snatches the stylus, continues, "Her laughter is the inundation, lifting my heart like papyrus boats." The scribe scribbles, muttering, "Boats, flood, laughter, got it, maritime rom-com." Rames's paces again, sandals slapping roses into collateral perfume. He dictates, "When she turns her gaze, the sun grows shy, hides behind clouds of envy." You interject that maybe the sun shouldn't sound like a creeper. He laughs, a sound like masonry deciding to be happy. "Jealous sun it is," adds drama. Somewhere in the palace, the actual sun probably rolls its eyes. Next stanza stalls. He taps the stylus against teeth white enough to guide ships. You glance at your solar earring. It throbs, volunteering celestial material. Inspiration lands. Her skin drinks moonlight, stores it for dreams I'm not invited to. Rames's freezes, all plastered across regal cheekbones. "By Tar's toolbox, that's good," he whispers. "Keep going." You do. I build her temples not of stone, but of breath. Each exhale a column, each inhale a doorway. The scribe's hand races, ink splattering like caffeinated spiders. Ramesses mouths the words, tasting grandeur. He adds, "Should war darken the horizon, I'll still carve her name on every arrow, so even enemies fall in love as they die." You're unsure about romanticized mortality, but he's already rhyming die with sky. so momentum wins. Final couplet needed. Ramses hands you the stylus, crowns you co-poet, no background check. You think of every near miss you've ridden, poisoned cups, forged beards, smuggled queens. You write, "If time erases kings, let it fail before her smile," he exhales, satisfied as a pyramid that just fit its last block. He claps. Musicians appear, plucking victory chords. A servant offers celebratory figs. You bite, sweetness flooding your mouth like end credits. Ramses rolls the papyrus, ties it with red linen stolen from a banner, and presses it into your palm. Deliver this to Nefertari. Tell her it floats on the Nile of my devotion. Also, supper at 8, dress code, flood-themed. You accept the mission, half mailman, half relationship counselor. As you exit, he calls back. If she cries, build a temple. If she laughs, build two. You nod, wondering when love became municipal planning. Outside, the courier waits, camel refreshed and ready. You climb, poem tucked safe beside foil letter and scarab beetle, your satchel now a traveling literary festival. The caravan moves on, roses fading in rear-view memory. You glance at the scroll, ink still glistening, heartbeats pressed between fibers. Somewhere ahead, Nefertari will read it under lamplight that softens empires. And somewhere further, a teen king games on, unaware that lettuce metaphors may outlive monarchs. You pat the papyrus, feeling history shift to accommodate one more love story, lightly toasted by desert sun and scented with grandiose ambition. The poem rests against your ribs like a love letter that's already read itself aloud. You ride east, past irrigated fields where farmers wave at the courier's royal standard, red cloth snapping like a bureaucrat's rubber stamp. Sunset smolders behind you. Ahead, the Theban hills rise, honey-colored and quietly arrogant. At their base, a doorway gapes, freshly chiseled, still tasting of quarry dust. Workmen drift out, carrying baskets of stone chips and gossip. One hums today's headline. Queen's Eternal House nearly ready, interior rumored nicer than living palace. Inside, torches line a corridor painted with skies that will never see clouds. Pure cobalt packed with yellow stars arranged in cheerful denial of actual constellations. A foreman recognizes the courier's seal, waves you through. "She's inspecting," he says, meaning Nefertari, meaning the queen for whom eternity is being interior designed. You descend gently sloping stairs, sandals whispering on stone still cool from night storage. Walls bloom, lotus bouquets, cows wearing necklaces, guards holding hands like tourists. Colors so vibrant they feel wet, as though the artists just stepped out for coffee. At the antechamber, you pause. The air smells of fresh plaster mixed with myrrh, basically new car sent for afterlife rides. Nefertari stands beneath a vaulted ceiling painted with golden stars, her white linen reflecting torchlight until she appears backlighted by her own constellation. She's smaller than you expected, delicate as a sentence spoken in cursive. She turns. Rames's scroll peeks from her hand like a child caught staying up past bedtime. "He sent you?" she asks, voice soft enough to dust furniture. You nod, suddenly aware your earring is pinging like a microwave announcing ready love. She unrolls the papyrus, rereads, lips moving to internal music. A smile forms, small, private, the kind that builds civilizations behind closed doors. "He always overwrites," she murmurs, but under-edits his heart. She gestures for you to follow deeper into the tomb. You obey because walking through someone's afterlife preview feels rude to refuse. The next corridor slopes further, walls now showcasing her journey, boats with linen sails, musicians plucking harps shaped like antelope necks, a cat judging everyone from a throne, probably the same feline who demanded earrings earlier. You pass a scene of Ramesses offering her a lotus. Artists painted his pupils dilated to cartoon proportions. Historical accuracy meets romantic hyperbole. Nefertiti pauses beside it, touches plaster gently, as though the flower might bruise. "He promised me gardens that bloom without seasons," she says. "I told him to start with one rose and daily water. We met halfway, he built temples. I kept the gardeners honest." At the burial chamber doorway, workmen install a pink granite sarcophagus, its interior already scented with rosemary and political stability. She runs a palm along the rim, checking for splinters that might snag eternity. Satisfied, she signals. Workers retreat, torches retreating with them like polite paparazzi. We're alone beneath a ceiling painted with star clocks and protective goddesses, air thick enough to butter. She produces the love poem, folds it smaller, places it inside a hollow carved beneath the sarcophagus base. "If my heart forgets, this will remind," she says. The sentence floats, lands on your conscience like a library fine for emotions overdue. She then lifts a small alabaster jar, offers it. "I paint, for when you need to see clearly in the dark." You accept. The jar is cool, weighted like a knight that's learned responsibility. Footsteps echo, foreman returning, timeline intruding. Nefertiti straightens, queen mask descending, though her eyes keep a soft edge, like obsidian recently polished by sighs. "Tell him I laughed," she instructs, "but only after I cried a little. Balance is important in architecture and marriage." You promise, though translators rarely get royalties on feelings. As you exit, she calls one last directive. "When you speak of this tomb, say it smells of roses and new beginnings, not endings." You nod, storing adjectives for later bedtime use. Behind you, torch smoke coils into star patterns that seem to wink, sealing gossip already spreading. Outside, night has fully landed, desert inhaling heat, exhaling starlight. The courier waits, dromedary chewing cud like a critic unimpressed by mortality. You mount, alabaster jar clinking against poem residue in your pocket. Glancing back, the tomb mouth glows softly, a night light left on for a queen who hasn't moved in yet. You tap the camel's reins, feeling the weight of promised laughter and strategic tears ride pillion. Ahead, more miles, more kings, more love letters folded into the fabric of empires. Each word a seed that believes in gardens without seasons, each heartbeat a petal waiting for daily water. The river widens as you drift north on a merchant skiff, the courier commandeered by waving one royal eyebrow. Reeds whisper gossip about rising water levels and falling moral standards. You lie low beneath a tarp that smells of onions and previous smugglers, alabaster jar clutched like a fragile alibi. Midday heat turns the Nile into liquid pewter. Every ripple flashes a Morse code you can't read, but still feels ominous. Around the next bend, a shout cracks the drowsy air. Part warning, part greeting, part karaoke chord. You peek. A sleek galley blocks the channel, its prow carved into a snarling lioness with gold earrings so large they could host dinner parties. On deck, women in sleeveless leather vests haul ropes with the casual strength of people who have arm wrestled gravity and won. At the helm stands a figure draped in indigo and audacity, the pirate queen, banner named Amenhotep, though rumor upgrades it to she who makes waves quiet. Her voice carries like a spear wrapped in velvet. Small boat, big secrets. Let's trade. The courier glances at you, shrugs. Diplomacy sometimes wears earrings and carries cutlasses. We drift alongside. Grappling hooks land with metallic kisses, planks thump into place. Up close, the queen's skin is coppered by salt and self-determination. Her eyes calculate wind speed and taxable assets in the same blink. She sports a thin scar across one cheek. Legend claims it's from a bar bet involving a crocodile dentist. Reality probably involves worse odds. She spots your solar stud glowing faintly under the tarp. "Nice star," she says. "Pirate's favorite shape. Points in every direction, including away." She plucks the tarp off as if unveiling mediocre art. You stand, trying to look courier-adjacent rather than courier-imposter. She reads faces like ledger columns, decides you're miscellaneous but potentially collectible. "Payment or story," she declares. "Choose wisely. My crew's board and blood is yesterday's entertainment." The courier produces a sealed amphora of Nubian wine. Royal label, vintage, please ignore contents. She pops the seal, sniffs, nods approval, then gestures you aboard for inspection. Deck planks flex underfoot like gossip easing into circulation. Crew members eye your satchel. You feel every document cringe. Armiset leans close. Her scent is sea salt, cedar tar, and the faint iron of adventure budgets. "What else floats in your pockets, little moonbeam?" You offer the alabaster jar. Eye paint, you explain, good for seeing in the dark or looking mysterious while fleeing. She twists it open, dips a finger, draws a stripe beneath one eye. The coal makes her gaze sharper, like night that's filed its nails. "Payment accepted," she purrs, "but stories pay compound interest." She snaps fingers. Crew forms a semicircle, expectant. You recount fragments, poisoned cups, lettuce love poems, teenage kings who gamble with figurines of destiny. You leave out names. Pirates appreciate anonymity, mostly for reuse purposes. The crew laughs at appropriate beats. One woman wipes a tear, possibly emotional, possibly tactical lubricant. Armiset listens, arms crossed, scar twitching like a smile that once knew better. When you finish, she exhales. "Good arc, weak naval presence, needs more sharks." She claps twice. Musicians appear, strumming lyres made from turtle shells, recycling before it was ethical. She declares a temporary alliance, safe passage to the Delta in exchange for future story dividends. You shake on it. Her grip could tenderize optimism. She shouts orders, sails unfurl, dyed the color of bruised twilight. Oars drum water. The skiff is tethered astern like a shy pet. You stand at the rail, wind whipping linen, feeling oddly liberated. Pirates apparently issue freedom in side quests. Below deck later, she offers dinner, flatbread, dates, fish marinated in citrus and tax evasion. Between bites, she sketches battle plans on a pottery shard. Cities she'll raid, officials she'll bribe, legends she'll edit. "Empires," she says, "are just villages with good publicists." She taps your solar earring. "Keep that dim. Gold attracts both admirers and arrows, often in the same quiver." You salute with a fig. She grins, scar folding into a parenthesis that encloses every story she's never told. Night deepens. The galley slices silver water. Drums pulse. Crew sings harmonies that list slightly toward mutiny but never arrive. You lie on deck, counting stars, feeling the boat rock like a cradle someone's fitted with swords. Somewhere between salt and lullaby, you realize power wears many outfits. Regal robe, pirate vest, maybe even tourist sandals. And sometimes the safest passage is booked by those who don't appear on any official map, whose taxes are paid in narrative and necklines cut for quick escapes. The pirate queen's laughter rides the wind, bright as stolen gold, soft as permission to stop fearing the dark. Dawn finds the galley gliding into Alexandria's great harbor, oars lifting like eyelids on the morning after a very long date. The lighthouse, still under construction, looms like a sculptor who's misplaced the instruction manual, half pristine marble, half optimistic scaffolding. Amenhotep salutes you farewell, scar glinting copper in sunrise. May your debts be stories and your pursuers illiterate, she offers, clapping you on the back hard enough to realign ancestral vertebrae. You transfer to a skiff bound for the royal quay, pockets lighter by one alabaster jar bartered for passage, but heavier by a pirate's promise to call if adventure stock crashes. At the palace pier, eunuchs in sea foam linen line up like well-coiffed parentheses. They escort you through gardens where scholars argue over herb classifications while covertly sniffing silphium, a plant so good at birth control it's practically running for office. Inside, Cleopatra Roman 7. Yes, the one, the only, the brand is multitasking, receiving ambassadors, tutoring her younger brother in algebra, and distilling perfume. Because queens who don't compound interest end up compounded. She's barely 20, eyes lined in kohl sharp enough to slice geopolitics, wearing a toga of imported silk the color of Mediterranean twilight. She greets you in perfect Koine Greek, switches to Egyptian mid-sentence, finishes in Latin just to audit the room for loyalty. "You're late," she declares, though no appointment existed. Time bends around Cleopatra like reeds around a particularly persuasive current. She waves a glass vial under your nose, scent of lotus, sea salt, and something metallic, ambition, probably. "New formula," she says. 1 drop, irresistible. 2, annexable. 3, incorrigible. Testing phase requires outside nostrils. You inhale, your solar earring flares, suddenly bilingual in flower. A servant rolls in a portable lab, bronze alembics, clay furnaces, tiny scales precise enough to weigh gossip. Cleopatra measures oils, cinnamon for warmth, cedar for endurance, a whisper of peppermint so conversations stay crisp. She scribbles equations that look like hieroglyphs flirting with algebra. Perfume is diplomacy distilled, she explains. Romans understand conquest, but they remember scent. She eyes your satchel. I hear you carry northern letters. Seal them with this. When Caesar sniffs, he'll think of home, expansion, and possibly me. She produces a separate flask, darker, labeled Antony in purple ink that smells like wine and poor impulse control. Backup plan, she shrugs. Chemistry first, chemistry second, politics when time permits. A cat jumps onto the table, pure Egyptian Mao, spots shaped like question marks. Cleopatra scratches its chin. The purr vibrates at frequency, soft power. She drips one final ingredient, her own tears, harvested during a strategic argument with her treasurer. Personal touch, she notes, makes the scent addictive, also qualifies for tax exemption under artistic suffering. She funnels the perfume into crystal vials no larger than a sigh, then hands you 2, one marked with a sun, Caesar, one with a dolphin, Antony. Deliver after sunset. Daylight makes men philosophical, twilight makes them portable. You stow them beside golden foil and Lappy's scarab. Your satchel now smells like a garden that's completed military training. Cleopatra leans closer, lowers voice to conspiracy setting. My brother husband plots with eunuchs. Romans plot with senators. I plot with molecules. Remember, when empires crumble, they still leave perfume stains. She snaps fingers. A servant presents a parting gift, a small ankh carved from sea glass, cool as tomorrow's problems. For luck, she says, and for remembering that some alliances are soldered by scent, not steel. Outside, harbor noise rises, gulls, merchants, the distant clang of lighthouse construction hitting deadline panic. You board a smaller cutter bound north, Cleopatra's perfumes nestled against older secrets. The captain hoists sail. Wind fills linen like lungs preparing to recite. You glance back. Cleopatra stands on the quay, cat at her heels, silhouette framed by marble and ambition. She raises a hand, not wave, not blessing, more like a chemist noting reaction started. The earring pulses, syncing with harbor rhythms, as if Alexandria itself breathes through your cartilage. The boat slips into open water, leaving behind a queen who trusts atoms more than armies, and ahead, two Romans who will soon inhale history disguised as fragrance. You exhale, tasting lotus and future on the salt air, aware that love potions are just diplomacy with better marketing, and that every empire begins as a scent you can't quite forget. Your cutter meets a Roman trireme halfway to the delta, its prow carving foam like an editor impatient with plot. Marines in polished bronze eye your Egyptian sail the way accountants eye receipts, necessary, suspicious. A boarding plank slams down. Centurions march across, sandals drumming oak like militarized tap dance. They frisk you efficiently, find vials, scrolls, beetle, ankh, basically a mobile gift shop, yet miss the solar earring, mistaking it for tacky tourist bling. On deck, Julius Caesar stands beneath a crimson awning, toga pleated sharper than policy. He's 40-ish, hair receded in a way that suggests follicles were outmaneuvered by logistics. Eyes the color of winter roads, smile quick as a sword that's already factored surrender. Alexandria sends perfume and promises, he says without greeting. Rome sends ships and interest rates. He gestures you closer. The plank flexes, feeling like career prospects, solid until they snap. He produces the sun-marked vial, uncorks, inhales once, pupils dilating like markets opening. Scent rises, lotus, cedar, salt, and something unmistakably Cleopatra, ambition wearing silk. For a blink, his mask slips. You glimpse appetite, maybe admiration, definitely appraisal. He recorks, tucks the vial into a dagger belt studded with cameos of conquered provinces, Egypt about to audition for a cameo on his hip. "Tell your queen," he murmurs. "Caesar appreciates chemistry, but prefers alloys, copper, tin, territory." A breeze snaps the awning. He uses the noise as punctuation. "Walk with me," he orders. You pace the deck while oarsmen pretend not to eavesdrop by rowing louder. He outlines Rome's dilemma, Pompey's ghost, senatorial side-eye, treasury thinner than late-night pizza. "Egypt is solvent," he says, "and solvent equals solvent." He laughs at his own joke. Latin puns are apparently gateway tyranny. He stops beside a rail map carved into cedar, Mediterranean as a pie chart, slices labeled in red. Egypt's slice hovers unclaimed, tempting as dessert. He taps it with dagger hilt. "I can carve or I can cultivate," he says. "Cultivation requires cooperation, shared irrigation, maybe shared children." The implication lounges between you, tanning itself in possibility. You hand him Cleopatra's second gift, a papyrus sealed with her personal wax, asp coiled around an alphabet. He breaks it, scans, smile curling like parchment in fire. "An invitation to Alexandria," he notes. "She offers scholarship, library, and strategic tourism." He folds the letter into his belt beside the vial, perfume and politics now sharing leather real estate. Suddenly the sea tilts. A rogue wave kisses the hull, soaking sandals and egos. Caesar steadies you, grip iron warm. "Balance," he says, "is knowing when to brace and when to let the ocean think it's in charge." You realize the same applies to queens, emperors, and visitors caught carrying olfactory ammunition. Dusk arrives early under Roman canvas. Torches spark, painting bronze armor blood orange. Caesar unbuckles the dagger belt, studies it like a spreadsheet. Take this, he decides, offering the entire accessory. Blade, vial, provincial cameos, plus the unspoken IOU of Rome. Give it to your queen. Tell her the dagger protects perfume, politics protects both. If she agrees, send the belt back empty. If not, send it full of something else. His smile sharpens, polite as a guillotine's first day. You accept. Leather feels heavier than metal, weighed by futures still drafting themselves. Marines escort you to the plank. As you cross, Caesar speaks one last line, soft enough for myth. I came, I saw, I concurred. Perhaps. Whether he means conquest or chemistry is unclear. Ambiguity, you decide, is the sharpest blade of all. Back on your cutter, sail raised, you watch the trireme recede, a red city of wood and intention. The belt coils in your lap, dagger cool, vial warm, provinces watching like gemstones unsure of their setting. You touch the solar earring. It pulses, syncing with distant lighthouse flashes, as if the world itself is learning to blink in code. Ahead, Alexandria waits, perfume ready, politics wary. And somewhere beyond, another Roman, Antony, dreams of dolphins and duplication. You exhale salt and certainty, aware that every gift now carries interest, and every belt, however ornate, is really just a loop waiting to be tightened. Moonlight tinsels the deck of your cutter as it noses into a cove west of Alexandria, where Roman galleys sprout like iron mushrooms after imperial rain. Torches stripe the water crimson. Laughter rolls across waves, loud enough to salt your heartbeat. This is Antony's floating headquarters, part legion, part casino, all appetite. A centurion hauls you aboard, eyes cataloguing your non-Ranus posture, but approving the dagger belt glittering at your waist. Luck wears jewelry, he mutters, steering you toward the gaming tables. Mark Antony lounges at the center, sandals off, toga slipping like an uncommitted promise. He's broader than Caesar, beard trimmed to shout, I tried. Eyes wine lubricated and still searching for the punchline. Before him, a backgammon board carved from cedar, inlaid with ivory and poor decisions. He shakes a cup of bone dice, rhythm suggestive of both war drums and party favors. Eyes of Isis, he calls to the crowd. Watch me roll the future. Dice tumble. 6 and 1, the Venus throw, lucky unless it isn't. Raw answers, coins clatter, bets swap owners, ego inflates. He notices you, or rather the belt. Caesar's cameos wink under torchlight like tiny provinces gossiping. Antony lifts the vial marked with dolphin, uncorks, inhales. Scent rises, lotus honey, something darker. Maybe opium, maybe Cleopatra's diary. His pupils widen to amphory. Nice vintage, he slurs. Tastes like tomorrow night. He pockets the vial alongside dice. Perfume and chance now share lodging. Play, he orders, sliding the board. You claim the opposing seat. Coins appear from onlookers eager to fund metaphor. He offers the dice cup. You shake, release. 3 and 4, respectable mortal. You move counters. Your pieces become Egyptian geese marching toward home. His transform into wolves wearing senatorial purple. Banter flies. He calls your geese feathered tax dodgers. You call his wolves legislation with teeth. Laughter ebbs and flows. Tide powered by wine and the general absurdity of empires gambling on 12 squares. Mid-game, he produces Caesar's dagger from your belt, examines edge, tests balance, pretends to shave imaginary stubble. Sharp, he notes, but Rome is sharper. He spins the blade, embedding it point first into the board between your pieces. Let's raise stakes, he proposes. Winner keeps dolphin perfume. Loser answers any question, truth, treasure, or treason. The crowd hushes, scenting narrative. You agree, because backing down in front of drunk legions is a visa denial to tomorrow. He rolls double 4, Venus doubled. Crowd erupts. Antony grins like a colossus who's just discovered emotional availability. His wolves pounce, swallowing 3 geese in a move that feels both mathematical and predatory. You need miracles disguised as math. Dice pass. You breathe on them, whisper Cleopatra's name like a spell that's been waiting for application. Throw double 6, the highest, guard's own yawn. Gasps circle. Antony's beard tilts, impressed and wary. You sweep pieces, reclaiming lost ground plus interest. Final roll, he shakes longer, whispering names. Mars, Bacchus, some ex-girlfriend from Gaul. Dice fall, 2 and 3 mediocre, almost apologetic. You follow with 4 and 5, enough to escort final goose home. Silence, then cheers split night like revenue. Antony laughs, the sound rolling out broad and genuine. Man who's lost before and knows the choreography. He flips the dagger, offers hilt first. Keep it. A wise wolf knows when the story needs a goose. He adds the dolphin vial back to your belt, now accompanied by his own signet ring, dolphin twisted around a sword. For the Queen of Tides, he says, when she chooses tides over Senate. Musicians strike up, wine flows, diluting defeat into anecdote. You stand, pockets heavier by 1 ring, 1 reputation, several metaphors. Antony calls after. Tell her dice are honest. They hate politics too. You salute with the cup, drain it, tasting luck, lotus, and the metallic prequel of consequences. Overboard, waves slap hull like accountants balancing books. You exhale, aware that every gift, perfume, blade, jewelry arrives with interest compounding in hearts and legions. Ahead, Alexandria's lighthouse strobes approval or warning. Hard to tell when guards and gamblers share the same odds. Behind, Antony's laughter echoes, mingling with dice still rolling somewhere in the future, clattering across marble floors, battlefields, and eventually, history's felt-lined table where all bets collect their due. The cutter slips out of the cove under a moon that's taken tonight's shift seriously, polished to a silence you can almost hear. Behind you, Antony's floating casino fades into drumbeats and torch smoke, a party rehearsing for tomorrow's hangover. Ahead, the Pharaoh's lighthouse looms, half-built but already confident, its marble ribs catching starlight like a whale learning to breathe fire. Construction cranes creak in the wind, lullaby of rope and pulley, each grown a promise that even uncertainty can be architected into wonder. You dock at a temporary quay used by stonemasons who double shift as philosophers, one hand chiseling limestone, the other weighing the permanence of dust. A night watchman recognizes the courier's seal, waves you through scaffolding that spiders skyward like ambition with good engineering. Inside the base, spiral stairs coil upward, each step still shedding grit from the day's labor. You climb, sandals whispering to stone about travelers who owe everything to gravity. Halfway up, you pause at a window slot framing the harbor, water sequined by moon, ships rocking like cradles staffed by insomnia. From here, Antony's fleet looks like scattered dice mid-roll, their pips torches. You touch the dolphin's signet ring in your pocket. Metal feels warm, as if remembering the hand that lost it. The sea breeze carries salt, tar, and something floral, Cleopatra's perfume, probably, riding airwaves like a press release. Higher. The staircase narrows, walls sweating cool damp that smells of wet marble and possibility. You pass a laborer napping against his chisel, snoring in sync with distant waves. Lighthouse lullaby in beta. He mutters numbers, measurements, debts, maybe sheep counting themselves into architectural history. You step over, careful not to wake the part of tomorrow that's still on night shift. At the summit platform, cranes silhouette against Ursa Major like giants playing pick-up sticks. A single lamp burns beside a table of blueprints weighted with amphory. The chief engineer, an Alexandrian named Nikon, who claims to calculate stress fractures by ear, greets the courier like an old cord. They discuss stone shipments, Roman deadlines, the eternal question of whether light should be fueled by firewood or existential brilliance. You drift to the edge, city spreading below, white blocks, green gardens, arteries of torchlight pumping toward the palace. From this height, Alexandria looks like a board game mid-setup. Cleopatra holds the perfume tokens, Caesar the legions, Antony the dice, you the wild card nobody remembers dealing. The courier joins you, produces a small signal mirror, begins flashing code toward the palace. Short, long, short. Message unreadable to you but apparently translatable as package secure, drama ongoing. Mirror flashes answer, distant but eager, like fireflies with political science degrees. Wind picks up, cranes sing. You sit, back against warm marble still hoarding daytime heat. The solar earring taps stone, vibrating with lighthouse timbers, sinking heartbeat to larger construction. Somewhere below, waves slap pylons in a rhythm that reminds you of childhood lullabies. Simple, repetitive, vaguely suspicious of monsters. You close eyes. The city rocks gently in the cradle of your circulatory system. Nikon resumes humming, adjusting a pulley that squeaks in protest, then settles into a minor key that translates loosely as even stones get homesick. You exhale, tasting limestone dust and sea salt, aware that every grand structure starts as a lullaby someone refuses to stop humming. Sleep tiptoes, sits beside you, borrows your shoulder. Around, ropes creak, marble settles, stars revolve like auditors reviewing infinity's books. Below, fleets guard and gamble. Above, cranes guard and gamble. Here, halfway between ambition and water, you drift. One more ingredient in concrete still deciding whether to remember or forget. First light smuggles pale gold across the summit platform, waking you gently, like a roommate who knows about your emotional bandwidth. Cranes stand frozen, mid-gesture, ropes dangle, tired of nighttime algebra. Below, the harbor inhales, surface glassy and dishonest. Mirrors always keep extra versions of the truth. You descend the spiral stair, knees clicking like abacus beads, each step subtracting height, adding perspective. At the base, a palace messenger waits, holding a basket woven so tightly it could store rumors without leaks. He bows, offers it to you wordlessly, because when the queen hands someone a picnic, history takes notes. Inside, beneath a linen napkin, coils a snake, small, sand-colored, hood relaxed like a monk between prayers. Its eyes regard you with the weary tolerance of someone who's already heard every Eden joke. A tag papyrus attached to a scale with silk thread reads, "For the visitor who collects metaphors, uses needed. C initial small, ego large." The courier whistles, soft, impressed. "Royal asp," he whispers. "License to kill, trained to negotiate." You ask needed for what? He shrugs. Diplomacy, drama, denouement, your call. The snake yawns, revealing fangs finer than most policy arguments. You close the lid, suddenly aware your satchel now contains perfume for Caesar, ring for Antony, beetle for Egypt, dagger for Rome, and reptile for existential crisis. Basically, a gift shop with venom. Transport requires calm. Snakes dislike vibrations, gossip, sudden career changes. You cradle the basket on your lap inside a skiff bound for the palace jetty. Water slaps wood, rhythm gentle enough to lull both travelers and treason. Sun climbs. The asp dozes, trusting wicker and the general incompetence of mammals. You, however, stay alert. Every ripple could be a courier of conspiracy, every heron a spy with a bird's eye view of regicide. At the palace quay, eunuchs form an honor guard that doubles as quality control. They escort you through corridors smelling of lotus and freshly sharpened influence. Cleopatra receives you in a chamber floored with black marble, so polished you see your future approaching from below. She lounges on a chaise, robe casually open at the shoulder, geography strategically displayed. Behind her, a map painted on silk shows the Mediterranean as a blue coin toss. She gestures to the basket. "My accountant," she jokes. "Efficient final, no gratuity expected." You set it down, careful. She lifts the lid, strokes the asp's head with a familiarity that suggests shared board meetings. "Rome understands steel," she says, "but Egypt remembers poison finishes arguments without paperwork." She doesn't specify target. Options remain conveniently blank, like invoices pre-signed. Conversation drifts. Caesar's legions camp east, Antony's fleet drills west, Egypt's treasury balancing on eyeliner and nerve. She needs leverage that fits inside a picnic, leverage portable across siege lines, something Romans can't confiscate because it looks like wildlife management. She eyes your satchel, inventorying gifts. "Swap," she proposes, asp for signet ring. "A snake for a snake," she smiles, referencing Antony's dolphin emblem, mammal technically, but metaphor overrules biology. You hesitate. Rings are credentials, but asps are conversation enders. She reads reluctance, adds sweetener, a small obsidian chip engraved with her cartouch, IOU from history itself. "When Egypt wins," she says, "cash it. When Egypt loses, melt it. No debts past the afterlife." You accept. The asp transfers to a new wicker condo, the ring to her finger, obsidian to your pocket. She offers final instruction. Keep the basket closed until options narrow to one. Then open slowly, step back, let consensus strike. She pats your cheek. Her hand smells of cinnamon and unrefuted power. "History bites," she adds, but rarely without warning. Outside, noon heat shimmers like indecision. You walk the corridors lighter by jewelry, heavier by metaphor, basket handle warm against palm. Somewhere inside, the asp shifts, adjusting coils around a future still debating endings. You exhale, tasting lotus and inevitability, aware that every gift, blade, perfume, ring, reptile arrives with interest, and interest, like venom, compounds in silence. The palace bureaucrat greets you at a side gate so unremarkable it could be a typo in architecture. No silk, no fanfare, just a man in beige linen who smells of wet ink and unsolicited advice. He introduces himself as Gaius, assistant to the assistant of the heir, which places him 3 cubicles below Octavian, the newest Roman prodigy who's turned administrative competence into spectator sport. He escorts you down a corridor lined with shelves of scrolls, each one a life story compressed into tax brackets. Inside a windowless office, Octavian sits behind a table so tidy it looks unused, proof of power so efficient it files itself. He's barely 20, hair combed like every strand filed a flight plan, eyes the temperature of refrigerated strategy. Before him lies an open ledger, columns of names, numbers, and marginalia that read like diary entries of a calculator. He doesn't look up, just dips a reed pen and gestures you to sit. Silence stretches, polite but armed. Finally he speaks, voice soft as paper cuts. Inventory time. He lists your satchel, Caesar's dagger, Cleopatra's asp, Antony's ring, 2 perfumes, 1 beetle, miscellaneous papyri. You ask how he knows. He taps a wax tablet labeled Assets, mobile mythic. Spies, apparently, are just librarians with cardio. He turns the ledger so you can read. Next to your name, undecided, useful / expendable. The slash looks freshly ink, decisive as a guillotine dating profile. He explains the math, 3 Romans, 1 Egypt, finite world. Someone's column will zero out. He offers you a line item, employment as narrative consultant, pay in citizenship, hazard in eternity. Refusal equals immediate balancing of books, emphasis on balance. You glance at the asp basket resting by your sandals. Octavian follows the look, adds a footnote. Venom, variable, dependent on target. He smiles, thin enough to floss with. Choose the denominator, he says, Rome or Nile. History prefers whole numbers. To sweeten, he slides a small bronze token across the table, an owl clutching a lightning bolt, symbol of rationalized victory. Show this at any legion camp, he says. Receive supplies, protection, plausible deniability. The token feels heavier than metal. It's a bookmark in a story still writing itself. He closes the ledger, stands, offers a hand that feels like signing a contract mid-handshake. You take it, because corridors behind you are filling with legionaries polishing short swords and long spreadsheets. Octavian nods, already updating mental columns, 1 visitor reclassified, 1 empire slightly more consolidated. Outside, dusk curdles into that bruised hour when torches argue with stars about whose shift it is. You walk the wharf, every step echoing like numbers being tallied. In your pocket, the obsidian chip from Cleopatra pulses warm. The Roman owl token pulses cool. Your ribs the ledger where hot and cold assets balance. You exhale, tasting ink and inevitability, aware that every gift, blade, perfume, ring, reptile, token arrives with interest, and every ledger, however tidy, leaves a margin where futures scribble outside the lines. The river barge slides north under a moon that's taken up drumming. Slow, hollow beats against the hull, like a heart practicing its final speech. You lie on the deck, head propped on the asp basket, lid secured, snake asleep, both of you pretending the other isn't existential. Memphis drifts into view, temples black against stars, only the tip of Ptah's sanctuary catching torchlight like a wink from a guard who's bad at flirting. Docking happens in whispers. Ropes coil, planks settle, night watchmen yawn passwords that taste of beer and yesterday's prophecies. You disembark, sandals tasting dust older than some countries. The city after midnight feels stored in a jar, air thick, quiet preserved in brine of shadows. A priestess waits beside a sphinx whose nose fell off during an argument with time. The woman wears leopard skin across one shoulder, an accessory that's both fashion statement and theological position. She introduces herself as Tadnit, midnight accountant for the gods, which sounds like someone who audits eternity and finds it short. She beckons. You follow, because when clergy offers tours at 1 a.m., curiosity outweighs survival instinct. Inside the temple forecourt, columns loom like bureaucrats discussing your case in mute. Tadnit produces a lamp fueled by myrrh and gossip, flame fragrant enough to make darkness blush. She leads you past sanctuaries shut for nightly maintenance, doors barred, guards within presumably brushing teeth. You reach a side chapel dedicated to Sekhmet, lioness goddess of healing and strategic carnage. Statues glare, torches flicker, your basket vibrates. Asp acknowledging apex predator royalty. Tadnit chuckles. Family reunion, she whispers, with fewer fatalities than usual. She offers bread round, warm, stamped with the hieroglyph for dream-interpreting license. You eat. It tastes of yeast and mild divinity. She explains, Memphis midnight is when gods clock out and mortals clock in to balance emotional ledgers. Your job tonight, deliver the asp to the sacred alcove, let it decide whether sunrise needs editing. You ask consequences, she shrugs. Either dawn arrives on schedule, or we negotiate alternatives. Theology here is basically customer service with clause. The alcove waits, small sandstone room, ceiling painted midnight blue, single window aimed east like a subscription to morning. You open the basket. The asp peers, yawns, glides onto the altar, coils into a perfect cartouche, snake signing its own name on history. Tadnit sprinkles water, chance low enough to register as suggestion rather than order. Flame bends. Shadows rearrange into shapes that might be futures, might be Rorschach tests for insomnia. You feel the solar earring cool, as if paying respect to older reptilian suns. Minutes stretch, elastic and polite. The asp sleeps or meditates or plots, hard to tell with royalty. Tadnit nods approval, leads you out, closes the door softly, sealing possible apocalypse behind polite carpentry. She hands you a token, carved fang strung on linen, proof of participation, or maybe backstage pass to later chaos. Keep it, she says. When sunrise feels heavy, bite the thread. Advice no life coach ever covers. Outside, night exhales cooler, city still paused like a video buffering eternity. You walk back toward the key leopard skin priestess beside you humming a lullaby that lists toward lull but never quite gives up on abyss. At the dock, she salutes, turns, disappears among columns that resume their mute conference. You board the barge, lie down, head now pillowed on empty basket. Absence also soft if you avoid implications. Stars revolve, slow as bureaucracy. You listen for sunrise, hear only water lapping hull, asphalt soft heartbeat in your ears, and the faint echo of a lioness goddess tabulating dawn's accounts. Somewhere behind stone, an asp dreams of editing horizons. Somewhere ahead, desert waits to vote on daylight. You exhale, tasting myrrh and maybe destiny, aware that every midnight ledger eventually balances. Either the sun rises, or we all agree to negotiate shadows. Dawn wins the vote. Sun edges over Memphis roofs like a treasurer reluctantly approving daylight. The barge casts off, southbound now, riding the current's easy metaphor toward home, whatever that means. You watch city shrink, temples fold into palm-lined silhouettes, priests become specks, the asp's alcove vanishes behind stone eyelids. Air warms, but the river stays cool, silk against hull, forgiving everything. You nap, lulled by oar splash and the faint click of new token lion fang necklace bouncing on your chest like a metronome counting courage in quarter notes. When you wake, midday has swapped itself for afternoon, and desert has replaced greenery with a sand catalogue that stretches farther than obligation. The boat puts in at a tiny West Bank hamlet. No name, just a well, a few raid huts, and silence so complete you can hear your own blinks. The courier says this is where you disembark. Road to Napata starts here, he explains, pointing to a ribbon of packed earth that dissolves into dunes. Also ends here if you miss pack water. He supplies you goatskin flask, dried dates, linen head wrap, and a smile that's part encouragement, part condolence. You swap farewells. He sails off, royal seal glinting, duty done except for paperwork he'll invent later. Alone now you walk. Sand receives footprints like a librarian accepting returns, quiet, efficient, ready to erase evidence by morning. Heat hovers, but breeze. Unexpected guest arrives from the north, cool as apology. It slips under your wrap, dries sweat, reminds skin that comfort still operates outside jurisdiction. You climb the first dune. Crest reveals an ocean of sand frozen mid-wave, each ridge a line of hieroglyphs spelling "keep going" in a language legs understand. Descent is surrender to gravity's hug. You half slide, half surf, shoes filling with warm particles that will later exfoliate your regrets. At the bottom, shade waits. Lean-to of woven palm mat propped against a dead acacia. Inside, a woman tends a tiny fire that produces no smoke, only aroma of mint and something metallic, possibly bronze, possibly courage being distilled. She introduces herself as Selkit, scavenger of cool air, claims she bottles breeze for travelers who have angered the sun. She offers a cup. You drink. The liquid is room temperature yet tastes like mountain midnight, proof that physics keeps optional hours. She notices your earring, frowns at its dim pulse. Solar needs rest, she says, and drapes a bead of wet mint across it. The metal sighs, cools against skin, returns to standby. She eyes the fang token, nods approval. Cat and snake in one journey, balanced doom nicely packed. She trades you a small square of linen soaked in the same mountain-tasting water. Payment, she explains, for letting her stories borrow your footprints. You accept. Barter beats bankruptcy in any century. Conversation rests. Silence resumes like a favorite song hummed without words. You close eyes, feel desert exhale across your face. Cool, soft, ancient. Footsteps approach, but opening eyes reveals nothing except sand settling in new patterns that spell stay. You obey, drifting into sleep that feels scooped from a refrigerator you didn't know existed. When you wake, stars have clocked in, huge and bright as if management finally approved overtime. Selkit gone, fire dead, but the air remains politely chilled. You stand, wrap the damp cloth around neck. Personal climate zone, portable, renewable. The road ahead shines faintly under moonlight, a ribbon of grey promise stitched across dunes. You walk, sandals whispering thanks to whatever engineer designed cool-down protocols for deserts. Hours pass measured by the slow tilt of constellations. Orion clocking out, Leo clocking in. Your shadow stretches, shrinks, plays hopscotch beside you, occasionally borrowing the fang necklace for swagger. Breeze stays, loyal as a pet that doesn't need feeding, drying sweat before it can complain. You think of everyone met, queens, pirates, poets, accountants, cats, snakes, architects of starlight and ledger. Each gift now rides your skin, perfume in hair, coal under lids, ring on cord, beetle in pocket, dagger at belt, token on chest, mint on neck. Histories carry on luggage. Eventually, a ridge of darker earth appears, the river valley returning, vegetation polite enough to clap as you descend. Palms rustle. Night-blooming lotus releases cool incense. You reach water's edge, refill goatskin, drink the reflective moon. Somewhere across the current, Napata waits, Kushite king unread letter in hand, future still negotiable. Behind you, desert resumes its daytime personality, heart, accusatory, amnesiac. But for now, cool lingers, soft as forgiveness, reminding skin that every landscape has a night shift, every journey a pause button, every traveler a right to refrigerated dreams. You lie on cool sand, earring pulsing gentle as a nightlight, and let the breeze write resignation letters to all remaining fears. Night signs off with a yawn of cool indigo. Dawn takes the stage, shy but rehearsed. You wake beside the Nile, cheek printed with sand that's already forgotten you. A fisherman's boat nods nearby, its owner cleaning nets with the rhythmic patience of someone knitting time. He greets you in Nubian-flavored Egyptian, offers roasted lotus seeds, crunchy, faintly sweet, like popcorn that's taken a philosophy class. You share dates. He shares gossip. Kushite court is camped 2 bends upstream, king undecided, advisors split between hospitality and creative ambush. Seeds and rumors both go down easy. You board his tiny craft. He rows, oars painting circles of quiet on water. The current helps. Rivers always side with travelers who have survived deserts. Palm groves slide past, villages wave, children splash alongside like enthusiastic punctuation. Mid-morning heat builds, but breeze, loyal pet from last night lingers, curling around your neck, mint still faint on the damp cloth. You finger the obsidian chip, Cleopatra, owl token Octavian, fang thread Sekhmet, beetle Ankhenaten, solar earring Aten, or possibly collective ego of every son you've met. Inventory of empires, weight of pocket lint and consequence. Around the final bend, the royal encampment appears, tense white as unwritten apologies, banners the color of dried blood politely requesting sovereignty. Guards in leopard skins line the shore, spears angled at that sweet spot between welcoming and perforation. The fisherman beaches. You disembark, sandals sinking into mud that feels like history registering your arrival. A steward escorts you through avenues of curious eyes, courtiers calculating exchange rates for Roman tokens versus Egyptian mystique. Inside the main pavilion, the king waits, not on a throne but on a camp stool, legs stretched, posture suggesting a man who's heard every sales pitch since sunrise. He's middle-aged, skin burnished like well-loved armor, eyes carrying the gentle fatigue of someone administrating a buffer state between bigger egos. He introduces himself as Amani Qha, though he jokes you can call him Q for simplicity and plausible deniability. He gestures to a low table, wine, bread, the golden foil letter you carried across deserts, now unsealed, rayed, and casually repurposed as coaster. He pours 2 cups, hands you one. Your queen offers marriage, he says, voice dry as archives. My advisors offer caution. Rome offers protection. My mother offers soup. He laughs. Courtiers echo politely, a choir trained in diplomatic reverb. You present the lapis scarab. He turns it over, recognizing the seal, the desperation baked into blue. He sets it beside the letter, evidence of an Egypt hedging bets on foreign princes while Rome practices subtraction. Conversation drifts to practicalities, dowry, troop support, shipping lanes, acceptable forms of polygamy. You listen, nod, aware that your role has downgraded from courier to living CC line. Eventually, he leans close, speaking softer than sandals on marble. Tell your sovereign I'll send a son, if the gods loan me one not already promised to someone else's story. He smiles, equal parts warmth and resignation, parent of a nation negotiating bedtime with empires. Outside, servants prepare a return barge, supplies, fresh nets, even a replacement earring, lappies inlaid with Cushite sun, part gift, part receipt. Q walks you to the water. He produces a small cedar box inside, a single cowrie shell painted with the Nile's entire route from source to delta. For perspective, he says. Rivers look small when you stand at the mouth, but every bend remembers you. You accept. The shell clicks against other tokens in your pocket, currencies of different dreams learning to share a wallet. The boat pushes off. You stand at the prow, breeze returning, loyal as ever. Q raises a hand, not wave, not blessing, more like a librarian closing a book that's still being written. Palm groves recede, villages wave goodbye, children resume their splash punctuation. You exhale, tasting lotus seeds, mud, and the faint metallic aftertaste of decisions that will age into footnotes. Behind you, Cushite banners shrink to postage stamps. Ahead, the river widens, preparing its final performance. You open your palm. The cowrie shell gleams, miniature water within water. You close fingers, feeling every bend remember you, and let the current decide which story gets the last word. The current gentles, as if the Nile has decided to end on a lull rather than applause. You slip the cowrie shell into the pouch that has become a portable museum of everyone's best bad decisions. The barge drifts of its own accord. The fisherman dozes at the tiller, trusting water more than charts. Ahead, the last bend widens into a moon-polished lake that remembers every boat it ever rocked to sleep. You lower yourself to the deck, back against the mast, basket of now empty asp beside you. Lid open, tenant departed somewhere between Cushite banners and this quiet. The solar earring has dimmed to night light mode, a faint gold pulse that keeps time with your heartbeat rather than the sun. Somewhere in your pocket, the ankh of sea glass clicks against the owl token, dolphin ring, lappy's beetle, obsidian chip, fang thread, an entire percussion section of history learning to play lullaby tempo. Above, stars arrange themselves into a cartouche that spells enough. You watch them until eyes water, then close, letting the river do the witnessing for both of you. The boat rocks, small, steady, infinite. Every story you borrowed, poisoned cups, lettuce love, teenage kings, pirate laughter, perfumed politics, settles into layers inside your chest, sediment settling after flood. Breath lengthens, heartbeat slows, matching water against wood, matching ore that no longer rose but still remembers the motion. You feel the moment arrive when participation becomes presence, and presence becomes sleep. The deck cradles, breeze combs heat from your skin, the Nile hums a chord older than language, younger than tomorrow. Somewhere downstream, empires will keep calculating, queens keep negotiating, poets keep overwriting hearts. But here, on this final river bend, accounts balance at zero, deadlines dissolve into dew, and every gift you carried, blade, perfume, ring, token, shell, transmutes into weightless memory, the kind that drifts just above dreams, shading them without demanding credits. Sleep arrives like a courier who's finally off duty, no seal, no message, only the soft instruction to float. You obey. The boat floats. The night floats. History, temporarily off the clock, floats with you. And somewhere in the hush, the river whispers what every traveler learns. Endings are only bends that forgot to announce the next beginning. Let the oar rest across your knees. Let the water keep its own secrets now. Breathe slower, each inhale borrowing cool night, each exhale returning warm day. You are safe on this quiet deck. There is nothing left to deliver, nothing left to prove. Feel the gentle sway, count your heartbeats down to hush. Stars above, river below, sleep ahead. 3 witnesses who agree you've earned the hush. If thoughts flutter, let them drift downstream like lanterns already accepted by the current. Your pillow is cedar, your blanket breeze, your lullaby the low conversation of water against wood. Candlelight fades behind eyelids, rivers flow under moonlight, stars gather overhead, soft, steady, sufficient. The end, sweet dreams.